For January the 16th, and I will call on Councillor Dunham to please do the land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The town of Innisfail acknowledges that we are meeting on Treaty 7 territory, the ancestral and traditional territory of the Blackfoot Confederacy, Kenai, Piikani, and Siksika, as well as the Tsuut'ina Nation and Stoney Nakoda First Nation. We acknowledge that this territory is home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3 within the historical Northwest Métis homeland. We acknowledge the many First Nation, Métis, and Inuit who have lived in and are cared for these lands for generations. We are grateful for the traditional knowledge keepers and elders who are still with us today and for those that have gone before us. We make this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation and gratitude to those whose territory we reside on.
Thank you, Councillor Dunham. And we will move into 2.1. Are there any additions or deletions? No? Could I please have somebody make a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make that motion, Mayor Barclay.
Thank you, Councillor Messaros. All in favor? Okay, thank you. And we'll move into 3.1. So I'd like to give a warm welcome to Sean Collins from Varme Energy. And Sean, if you'd just like to come up to the desk here, and thanks for coming today. We appreciate it and looking forward to an update.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be back in front of all of you. Give me 1 second and I'll got a quick overview presentation that I'll run us through. Hope everyone had a good holidays. Did anyone make it onto Santa's nice list? No? Perfect. I think this should be working now. I've got a presentation on my end. Yes, I am. No worries. Yeah, I thought I wanted to use the time to do update on Varme and the project development efforts to date. So we put out a year in review summary that I thought would be a good tool to just update council and share a bit of progress across the board. Happy to answer any questions as well, but maybe I'll just jump in, and if there's any questions at any point in time, feel free to jump in. So yeah, I think we disappeared. I was looking back. I think the first time I had the pleasure of connecting in person with you was in April of last year. So we're coming up on not even quite a year since our first interaction. So it's been a pretty busy year all around, and I've really appreciated the level of support and dialogue across the board with council administration so far. So yeah, summary on the year in total. This is macro across the whole company. Wild and fun year for us overall. So our incorporation for Varme was in July. I think our first chat that we had with Andreas and the Green Transition Holding team was in May with you all. So been fantastic to see how fast we've been able to move in that short period of time. Some major updates for us. We've been able to make some progress. The sort of two primary projects we're in development on in Alberta is in the industrial heartland in Edmonton, as well as with Innisfail. We're able to sign a MOU associated with the project in the heartland. And we've now kickstarted a feed study associated with our projects in Alberta. So to do Alberta-based costing for the waste to energy facility and carbon capture and storage integration. So we kicked that off in December and are expecting that to complete in May to give us updated local. Most of our costing estimates to date have been based on experience in building in Europe. And so we're into doing that work now in Alberta. We've got a short list of 6 EPC construction partners that we've worked through. Andreas is coming back in a couple weeks with a few folks from the Norwegian engineering team to do workshops with all of the finalized vendors. So we'll be bouncing back and forth between Edmonton and Calgary a bit for that. And so far I've been very, very pleasantly surprised at the level of interest from the engineering and construction industry in these projects. One more material update that would be news, I think, to most folks on council and admin is that we have received a signed letter of intent from the Norwegian federal government through XFIN to provide up to a 50% loan guarantee for our projects in Alberta. So it helps de-risk the construction contracts associated with the project. So we're very, very happy at that. Have also had pretty material dialogue and conversation with the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, who's expressed interest in the projects as well. So feeling quite supported by both the Norwegian federal government and the Canadian federal government. We did get some great pickup. I think Johnny's in the crowd. He was one of the folks that gave us some great awareness of the partnership that we've signed with the Ermineskin Cree Nation. They're very keen on the Innisfail project as well as our larger portfolio of projects to be an Indigenous equity partner in the projects. And so very, very happy at that relationship. They're helping do outreach to other First Nations. There's a lot of values alignment in the projects in enabling us to be landfill free. So we've been using the language of landfill free First Nations and very keen to find more compelling uses for our land than dumping garbage on them forever. And so been very ecstatic at that partnership. Ermineskin Cree are also the largest shareholders of the First Nations Bank of Canada. We are doing our corporate banking through First Nations Bank of Canada and have been really pleasantly surprised at their passion for the project and their acumen overall as a partner. I think this may be a Johnny picture that we're looking at here. We have really appreciated we've had a bit of a snowball effect. The town hall that we were able to do here, we were able to get some great media pickup on that event. That led to a major news article in CBC. That led to a major interview with BNM Bloomberg. And so overall, we've been really happy at the level of in awareness and interest, both from a public and a media perspective in the projects to date. Over the course of the year, we've been involved in a number of events and speaking gigs and opportunities. Got to pitch as one of the 10 companies as part of Launch Party in Edmonton in October. We got to host a major stakeholder engagement session in Edmonton in partnership with the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Was happy to be one of the 2 speakers at the Power of Place conference in Innisfail. Got to speak at the Carbon Capture Canada conference. And I know Rory was down here for the Innisfail Energy Futures Lab workshop. And I believe him and Todd were announced today as new fellows as part of the Energy Futures Lab. So congratulations to Todd and to Rory. And so I think I may have mentioned this before, but I was proud to be one of the original fellows for EFL. I was a fellow for, I think, the first 5 or 6 years that the lab was going. And so really happy to have Rory and Todd participating in that activity. That's the sort of short and sweet overview and summary of some of the major highlights for us over the last 6 to 9 months. Happy to take questions. Have a few other updates that I can share just on our capital raise efforts, our Chase for Waste, and as well as some vision about how we might be able to support some of the development activities in the town. But maybe I'll sort of pause here for any questions about the update so far.
Okay, thank you, Sean. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Dunham?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Sean, welcome back, and thank you for the update. So when this first started, do you feel that what your original vision was, that you've sort of accomplished it to date, or do you feel you're ahead of the curve at this point?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I would definitely say as fast, if not faster, than I would have expected so far across the board. I think some of the things like now having Norwegian federal government interest and support is really material. The overall corporate and capital interest has been extremely strong, I would say. So overall as a company, it was pretty fast running year. Again, things like the media pickup and attention, even things like BNN, they're like, oh, have you built your first project? And we're very transparent in that we're chasing our first financial close on a project. And so I think the overall level of interest in what we're doing is exceeded my expectations significantly.
Councillor Bates?
Yeah, Sean, Thank you for coming back. I was just wondering, are there any other Canadian jurisdictions other than Edmonton and Innisfail that you're eyeballing, even if it's?
Yeah, we're pretty laser focused on Alberta it's our home turf, and a lot of advantages in like carbon capture and storage. There's now 25 independent carbon capture and storage projects underway in Alberta. That's unique in the Canadian context. We have started some preliminary dialogue in BC, Saskatchewan, and Ontario. Challenge in BC and Ontario is there's no real ability to integrate carbon capture and storage. You'd have to do some sort of carbon utilization play. So I would maybe use the language 90% of our efforts are associated with the Heartland project and the Innisfail project.
Thank you.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for coming, as always. I guess my question is about the leadership teams that you've built, you know, with the investment and Innisfail and everybody else that wants to get involved. With Varme, do you want to make sure that some of that leadership team gets to see what's going on in Norway? That was a question that I have for you. I think it's really important. The project is very important, but I think it's very important for team leadership to see what's going on in Norway, so that we can actually just, you know, we've seen it, we've touched it, we know this is the next step.
Yeah,
That was my question.
sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would say probably a little bit tight timing, but I'm heading over to Oslo the second week of February. Rory and I don't think you've met him yet, but we've hired a CFO named Mikael Blum, who's based in Toronto. We're all heading to Norway, bringing along a few folks from, maybe we won't share in public who, but some sort of influential folks within the Alberta marketplace. Ermineskin Cree has also sent over a team in November to do due diligence on the facilities, as well as our industrial partner in the Heartland. So we've sort of passed two separate groups, technical due diligence processes in Norway to date. Continue to see that as being valuable for people to see and touch facilities to get a level of additional comfort. Would say on our side, timing for this trip may be tight, but we'll be doing additional trips in 2023 if there is interest for Innisfail Team Norway trip. Absolutely on the table from our side.
And I'm going to speak. I do think it's really important for our administration and I'll say our leader, our mayor, to go overseas and to see facilities to make sure. For me, I don't need to go, but I trust their judgment. So.
Okay, absolutely on the table
Thanks.
on our side. Yep.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Welcome back, Sean. Good to see you. Happy New Year, all that good stuff. So relative then to the Innisfail project, is there anything more that we can be doing from here to help open doors or help get people to the table from this region? What are you hearing when you do talk to people in the region? What are their concerns, and what do you think the opportunities look like?
Yeah, I would say feel the one of the slides that we had in our first town hall presentation was sort of headwinds to overcome, and surfaced pretty early that it felt like waste was going to be amongst the hardest commercial contracts to lock down, and it's continued to prove as such. Landfills don't pay the methane cost of their emissions in Alberta, and so it's a bit of a unpriced externality that you have to overcome. So in terms of where we can continue to use effort and support, I would say the waste chase is the most challenging. Have made some material progress with the City of Calgary. We've started a market-led proposal around trying to get the City of Calgary's waste into the Innisfail project. Also contemplating some private options. Pricing is a bit of a challenge to sort of make that whole. So that could be something that could be made up for in some sort of grant if we're able to do a joint application. So either private waste with some sort of subsidy, or again, the major cities have a bit higher capacity and pricing to be able to play with. We have shared, like we've appreciated, we were invited to do a presentation to 20 regional mayors in Innisfail, November maybe. The months are blending together a bit. From that, we were able to get in front of the mayor and council in Rocky and Blackfalds and have submitted letters of intent to both of them around providing their waste to the Innisfail project. Those would be two areas that if there's personal relationships, they're both in the sort of contemplation and review of our materials stage, and so keen to try to lock both of those up. But between those two and Innisfail, we'd be about 40% contracted on the waste for the project. So efforts associated with the Chase for Waste would be very, very beneficial. The other one that I've surfaced a little bit with mayor and administration is there's a bit of a argument, I think, to be made for Innisfail around being put at a slightly disadvantageous position in comparison to the industrial heartland, because they've now got this designated industrial zone for fast-tracked approvals in the heartland. That doesn't exist anywhere else in the province. And so advocacy to the provincial government around fast-tracking approvals for critical infrastructure projects elsewhere would be another area that I think Innisfail could lend a voice.
Okay, anything else? Okay, maybe you can carry on with,
Thought I would just share a couple other thoughts. Won't go into sort of specifics, but would share on our efforts around securing capital associated with the project, as well as energy and carbon off-takers. We've been busy folk. We're about 40 capital meetings deep now. Launched most of those efforts at the end of November, and so have had a very busy sort of November, December, and early January. Would share language of strong capital interest in investing in these types of assets and projects. Also, in terms of interest in folks in potentially buying the power or the carbon offsets associated with the project, have multiple suitors at the table for both of those. So just sort of sharing that in terms of expectations, have been pleasantly surprised at the level of capital market interest. Even things like the XFIN loan guarantee were not necessarily things we would have expected to be available, and so quite happy with that process. And then one thing I would share is I'm aware of the plans associated with potential new rec center or pool development within Innisfail. Ran the numbers on how much natural gas is used for heating the pools at the moment. So just ran some quick back of the envelope numbers, and in a month you would only need about 4 hours worth of the heat that we would produce to heat the pool. It uses about 600 gigajoules a month. We would produce that amount of energy in about 4 hours. Or you could theoretically use like residual waste heat off of the project to provide the heating for something like that. It's relatively low grade. Pools might run 32 Celsius or sort of relatively low temperatures. So just wanted to sort of offer that we're keen to be a good corporate citizen in the community, and think that there might be an opportunity to integrate some of the energy associated with the project to help that become a net zero pool or a net zero rec complex, to help it stand out and differentiate, particularly in the site that we've been discussing is, I think, 800 meters away from the site. So usually piping costs can be what break those sorts of economics, but think that there's opportunities for us to potentially support some of the other development taking place within Innisfail as well. And that was it.
all right, any further questions? Or no? Okay, well, we'll see you back a little bit later then.
Yeah.
So thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Cheers.
all right, see you shortly. So we will move on to 3.2 with Director Jenkins and another guest today.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. So we have Jonathan Weal with Southland Bus Lines here with us today. Jonathan has come to give council a bit of a sense of the types of services that they offer in other communities through their transit options, as well as answer any questions. With your agenda packages as well, there was the monthly stats for the Pace Bus for the last 12 months. So if council has any questions about those as well. But yeah, I will turn it over to Jonathan and let him give you guys the spiel.
Welcome, Jonathan, and thank you for coming today. We appreciate it very much.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me along. I was just checking my notes. I thought that I'd been speaking to Megan for about a year, but it's actually since October. When I check back, it seems like a lifetime. But yeah, Megan reached out to me back in October with regard to your community transit that you have. And so we've been talking ever since then. An RFP was issued. So I'll give you a bit of background on Prairie Bus Lines and Southland Transportation. So we're part of the Pacific Western group of companies. You probably know us as through Southland or through Red Arrow, eBus, Diversified Transportation, and of course Prairie Bus Lines in Red Deer. So we have about 5,000 employees across the country. And we run about 2,500 school bus routes in Alberta right now. So we've been working closely with municipalities on what's called on-demand transit. So on-demand transit came about. The first one in Alberta was the town of Cochrane. So the town of Cochrane have been looking for about 15 years for a form of transit in their town. And they'd looked at fixed route systems, but the cost was far too expensive. So a town the size of Cochrane would be looking at spending about $1.5 million a year on a transit system. So they couldn't afford it. There wasn't the justification, and that would only cover about 40% of the community. So I met with the new mayor, Jeff Gunung, in early 2018, and we discussed on-demand transit and what it would mean for the community. So on-demand transit is, as you see on the screen, it's flexible, it's user-driven, it's adaptable and cost-effective. So if any of you have ever used Uber or something similar, that's what on-demand transit is. The vehicles are located within the community. They don't go on fixed routes, and they only go on rides when their rides are booked. So the public have an app that they can use. It's also connected to the call center, and they can use web booking. So if a customer wants to make a booking, then they quite simply go onto their app, say they went to be picked up, where they want to go, and they put a time parameter in there. So if you have to be at an appointment at 10 a.m. in the morning, it will say we need to pick you up at this time, and we will get you to your appointment before 10 a.m. They will also it will also ride share. So somebody else may already be on the bus when they come and pick you up. You may go and pick somebody up before they take you to the destination. But all this is done up in the cloud. It's the computer program runs everything. We have the backup, which is our customer call center. Our customer call center works from 5 a.m. every morning until around about 1 a.m. in the morning. So that's manned full time. So if you have members within your community that don't want to use an app, they can't use it online, they don't want to use the web, they phone in and they make a booking. And then our people, our customer service team, access the app directly and put you in. So you would still have your own account, you'd still have your own information, you still have your own sign-on. It can be used for accessible transit. So the app knows that if somebody's coming with a wheelchair, then they allow more time for them to pick up and drop off the customer. It allows you to make bookings in advance. It allows all sorts of special accommodations. Maybe somebody has they have shopping that they've picked up from the supermarket and they need to go home. So the drivers are all trained on that side of customer service as well. So the drivers don't just drive, pick up the customer or arrive and pick them up. They would help them with, if they've got young children with them, they've got a stroller they need to put on the bus. It's all part of the customer service training and program that they receive. So the vehicle is live tracking, so you can look on your app or you can look on the web and see where your vehicle is, and it counts down in real time. So it will tell you that the bus is 4.5 minutes away from you, but if the bus then hits a red light, it will continue updating you live as to where the bus is, so you're not waiting. You can use two methods. There's a number of things that you can use on this service that's fine-tuned to your community. So some examples of communities that we have. So we have the town of Cochrane, which was the first municipality in North America to have a complete on-demand transit system. They were followed 2 weeks later by the town of Okotoks. And then the city of Calgary. So the city of Calgary uses it. New communities would normally wait 2 to 3 years to have transit in the community, but we use on-demand service to pick up people within those communities and link them to the current transit service. That was followed by the town of Blackfolds, which is a similar sized community as yourself, and they were the first people that integrated, the first municipality in Canada that integrated an on-demand service with a regional service. So their on-demand service runs backwards and forwards between Blackfolds and the town of Red Deer, the city of Red Deer as well. So they go into northern Red Deer, drop people up so they can drop people off so they can connect with the transit service. But then the buses are also going around Innisfail, picking people up, dropping people off during other times of the day. Sorry, Innisfail, I said Innisfail, meant Blackfolds. So those two things are linked together. The service, as I say, the drivers, they have a tablet in the cab of their vehicle, and it gives them turn-by-turn directions to where they're going. It speaks to them, so the screen goes blank when they're driving, and it speaks to them and tells them where they've got to go so they get to the most efficient route to get to the pickup. We can control, for example, we can adjust remotely things like if you set that you want the parameters, that you want nobody to be on the bus for more than 15 minutes, or you want nobody to wait more than 30 minutes. We set those parameters up, and then each day you'll get a review saying how many passengers were moved, what their average time on the bus was, what their average time was waiting for a pickup. So we work with your team to say, well, we're not getting too many riders that are sharing the ride. It's like a cab service now. So we extend those windows by 1 or 2 minutes to see how that increases. So even though it's a service that's there and it's happening in real time, it's also like a pilot as well, because we can make adjustments at any time to move things around. The beauty of it, as opposed to a fixed route system, is, for example, if you have an event such as your rodeo or something like that, we can just add hours on to your day and the number of vehicles on. We can bring vehicles in from outside. We have over 200 employees in Red Deer. We have over 1,000 in Calgary. So we can bring additional people in to cover for the drivers that are here. One of the first things we do is put all of the drivers onto a training program, so they learn about our customer service, they learn how to use the app and everything that goes with it. But we'd also be increasing their hourly rate because we want the local people to stay with us. We want those drivers to stay with us. And so we can adjust. We charge you by the hour. So we can determine how many hours per day, per week, per month that you want, and that's what you build on. Now, in your situation is slightly different to anybody else, is that, number one, you own the vehicles, which all municipalities do that we work with, but you have your maintenance facilities here. So there's no hourly cost for the maintenance. We don't have to build that in. So basically all you're paying for is the driver wages, the customer call center, and the cost of the app. That's all it is, and we manage everything for you. It's pretty much hands off for your community. We do have other communities in Ontario that use a similar system as well, where we operate it for them. And across Canada, we operate the transit services for 43 different municipalities. This is nothing new that people subcontract there. You know, BC Transit, which if you've ever seen a BC Transit bus, we've been running their transit service in Prince George for more than 50 years now. So it says BC Transit on it, but nobody knows that it's run by PWT. We do all of that sort of thing. So I hope I haven't spoken too quickly or given you too much information in too short a period of time. But now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of questions, and I'd like to open it up for anybody that has any questions that they would like to ask.
All right, thank you. Jonathan, questions? Anybody? Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, and a great presentation, John. I just have one question around, we have a very sort of dedicated use in Innisfail and it's a handy van service.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and there's times that both buses are out doing trips around and about. So did I hear you say that you'd bring other buses in if there's a third trip, or how does this work?
Yeah. So what we do an analysis every day of the number of bookings. So it doesn't only tell us who's booked, when they booked, where they were going to and from. It also gives us analysis of failed bookings. So people that couldn't make a booking, where they tried to book, because it's on the app, right? So we have a history. Where did they want to go? What time did they want to go? And so we work with the communities over the period of time to make we adapt the service so that it covers. So we will speak to you and say, listen, your service finishes at 6 p.m. But we're getting a whole ton of bookings between 6 and 7, or we're getting bookings between 5 and 6 a.m. that people are trying to make and they fail. So we come back to you and say, listen, maybe we need to add an hour onto the end of the day to allow for those. So the difference is that, for example, Blackfolds operate from 6 a.m. till 8 p.m. The town of Cochrane is very, very similar, but the town of Okotoks operates from 5 a.m. till midnight. And they started off with 2 buses operating a town of 30,000 people. They're now up to, they have at their peak, they have 5 buses running. Because as the service has picked up and more people want to use it. We can also prioritize people with disabilities or accessibility issues. So there's so many different options. So the town of Cochrane and the town of Blackfolds use virtual bus stops. So everybody has a virtual bus stop, so it's really just a sign. There's no cost of infrastructure, there's no cost of canopies or anything else. It's just a sign on a lamppost that says this is a virtual bus stop. And so they're directed by the app to go to their closest virtual bus stop. So there'll be a virtual bus stop within 400 meters of every town within the community. So the most anybody has to walk is 400 meters. Excuse me. With accessible transit, we pick up from their front door. Now, the town of Okotoks, everything's pick up from the front door. So it can be adapted to however you want. You set the parameters. We work with you and with Megan and the community services to say, what is it that you want? Do you want people picked up from the front door? How long a wait time? But the beauty of it is that once we started, we could change it every day if you wanted, right? So we have the website, we can reach out. We usually wait about a month or 6 weeks between making changes so that people get used to it. And as I say, we can add hours on. We might find that there's a bigger requirement during summertime, or there's a bigger requirement in wintertime. Then maybe that we don't have a requirement on a Sunday anymore, or we don't have. So we manipulate and we work with the data that we have to get you to where you need to be to provide the best service. And as I say, bigger communities have gone from. It's bronchitis, by the way. I've had it since before Christmas. So the bigger communities are changing their services every couple of months. For example, in Cochrane, we red fence or red ring all of the schools. so that nobody can book a journey to or from school because they have school buses, right? And we don't want it all being filled up, that nobody can use it because it's full of kids who want an extra 10 minutes in bed in the morning, so they'll take the shuttle bus, those sort of things, right?
Councillor Heistad?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I asked this question to Director Jenkins, I think it was the other day, but I think the app idea, and I've used Uber before, it's pretty slick. But I was thinking of, like we do have people that utilize our bus in Bowden, and then, our buses go to Red Deer. So I was thinking, how can we eventually build on the communities that we work with, like Springbrook, Penhold, if trips are going to Red Deer? Is there flexibility for that, or is it just solely for Innisfail?
No, I mean, that is totally up to you.
Okay.
Right? Now, do you want to be subsidising other communities' transit?
No.
That's up to you, right? So we can work with you. For example, the way that we initially looked at it was that your larger bus would stay within the town of Innisfail. If we get calls for out and specials and people going to Red Deer or Penhold, we would utilise the second bus for that. So that you have, there's always one that's within Innisfail, moving people round, and then we have the second bus, which would do some of the out of town. Now, maybe that will work, maybe it won't work, who knows, we try it.
Yeah.
And we see whether or not that's the best way to utilise. We may have it where it flips around because the system will know that one bus has gone out of town and it won't let the second bus go out, right? So it knows that it has to keep servicing the people within the town. Now, you may want to say to the communities of Penhold, and I know you go as far out as Pine Lake, that sort of area, that those communities, and you may say, hey, we need you to contribute 10% towards our cost if you want us to keep you on board, or maybe we see how many runs that they do. But the good thing is that what the app does and the whole system is it generates absolutely more data than you could ever think of. And we can analyze that and see, and it will tell us how many times we went to Penhold, how many times, what was the average time that it took to get there, what was the cost to you of going to Penhold, right? Because you got the driver's wages, you got the fuel, you got the maintenance, you got everything else on that bus, and it might be that you go into Penhold and you're charging somebody $5, but the actual cost of going to Penhold and back was $22, and so you're losing money as subsidising. I mean, if you've ever worked with transit in any other community anywhere, your average cost return is about 20%. That's good return for transit, is you get back in revenue about 20% of your actual cost. There's communities around Alberta that it's far less than that. It's sort of in the low teens. So transit's subsidised. It's just the way it is. It's a community service rather than profit making. So we try and make it as cost effective for you guys as possible, right? As the community, because you don't want it to be subsidised by the taxpayers. When we launched the service in Cochrane, it worked out an annual cost per household of $35. So it's $3 per month per household. Yeah. Was what the actual cost was. Now, they've gone from one number to they've almost doubled what they're spending on transit because of not because they've added service willy-nilly, they've added service because the public wanted to use it. There were some members of council that said we don't need transit, and after a year they suddenly realised that so many people were using it, up to 200 people a day were riding on their transit services, that they realised that there was a call for it. And you tend to find that the people who use transit are low-income people with restrictions on running their own vehicles, and a lot in a commuter town like Okotoks and Cochrane is that families can suddenly go from having 2 cars to having 1. So if the one person is driving into Red Deer each day, or in their case driving into Calgary for work, their partner that stayed at home doesn't need a car to go shopping or do anything with the kids. And we've also found we had in Okotoks and certainly earlier in the evenings in Cochrane, and the same in Blackfolds, is a lot of the students are using it, or the teens, to go to their hockey practices and things like that, so mum and dad doesn't have to be driving them everywhere, because you have on your app, you put credits on it. So you prepay, you put credits on, so you can, you can have your teen can have their own account, and you put $50 on a month, and the student gets to use it. And again, you can set the prices. So both Cochrane and Okotoks are around $3 a ride. I think that Blackfolds is the same, actually. This is about $3.25 a ride. They've gone in different directions. Cochrane, you can buy a monthly pass, and you have unlimited travel for that month once you've bought that pass. Okotoks have gone along the line of you prepay tickets, and the more tickets you prepay, the lower the cost per ride. So if you prepay for 100 trips, you can get it down to just over $2 a ride. So different, whatever works for your community, and whatever prices you want to charge.
Thanks. No, thanks for that. And no, I wasn't strong-arming council to help out Penhold or Springbrook and that. I was thinking of the future, right? And
Yep.
And maybe we go that route, but that's why I asked the question. Thank you.
Yeah, and of course, in the future, there's always funding available. So a lot of people in the communities that we worked with, they got funding from the provincial and the federal governments to buy new vehicles. I'm sure you've been down those routes yourself, with the rural transportation funds. So you can expand. I mean, for example, when Cochrane started, they only needed 4 buses, but they bought 8 because they had the money. So it came from the government, so they bought 8, so they're only running half the mileage that they need to, and they're obviously they're going to last much longer. And so as they've expanded, they're actually up using, they use 7 buses a day now. Started off with 4, so it gets busier and it changes.
So, Jonathan, maybe through to Director Jenkins, I mean, we're kind of talking a broader scope here with a bus system. Like right now, we offer basically a handy van service in the community. Is that what we're looking at going forward to start with, like the service kind of as is? Or I know we do medical trips and things out of town as well. And
So service level currently, like the service is open to anyone.
Yeah.
It's not limited to seniors or those with mobility issues or anything. So moving to this route, I think with the added sophistication, it would certainly be more efficient and more available for individuals to access it, to increase that ridership. I think there are conceptions that the current service is, only for seniors or only for
sure.
those. So I feel the route with this type of system certainly would expand or enhance the service level from how it currently operates.
Yeah, for sure.
So you can tell us what your budget is. If you want to spend $100,000 a year, you want to spend $200,000 a year, you tell us and we build the service to match that, because it's by the hour. So if $100,000 buys you, X number of hours, then we work out how many hours we can do per day. So it's all guaranteed. It's all determined by what your budget is.
Yeah.
By what you want to spend, what you have to spend, and we can start off very small. I think one of the things that you'll notice very, very quickly is, number one, an uptake in ridership, and number 2 is the efficiency of the vehicles. There won't be guys sitting around waiting in between runs, that sort of stuff, and there will be, the buses will be available when they're needed. We can certainly, we won't have days where there's no service because there's no driver available. We can call on drivers, especially during the summer months when the majority of our school bus drivers are not doing anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, we did have a regional service. Well, I guess that was maybe, 17, 18, something like that, that was funded by the provincial government. And so the city of Red Deer was providing the buses coming down through Springbrook, Penhold, Innisfail. you know, when that pilot came to an end, it just wasn't affordable for us. Like it was, we kind of broke down the cost. I think it was around $100 per ride into Red Deer, which,
Yep.
you know, didn't make any sense for us to do. But yeah, sounds very interesting. And I love the idea of the data collection. I think that's one thing that we've been, you know,
Yeah,
not able to do as
I
sophisticated
know
as
that
this, for sure.
Blackfolds is Blackfolds is a similar sized town
Yeah.
to yours,
A little bit bigger.
and they were originally involved with the town of Lacombe. Had their transit out there, and Lacombe pulled out, and so Blackfolds are stuck on their own, and they've made it work incredibly well. I'm sure if you speak to mayor and council in Blackfolds, they will let you know how it's worked for them.
Yeah, I've heard it's great. So Councillor Bates?
I find it very interesting, and I like the idea of the ability to change, to adapt, and whether it's to the budget or to the need or to whatever, and trying things. One question comes to mind in all of your other experiences. One of the things that we do seem to have is occasionally, as we've changed or even added the bus or whatever, then we get a pushback or from the taxi company. Or do you find yourself with that situation in any of the other communities where somebody's accusing somebody else of trying to take their...
Yeah. There's always going to be call for taxi services. It's door to door. It's far more effective. You're in the cab on your own. One of the things that we have done very, very successfully with the municipalities we work with is community engagement. So we have open houses, we have virtual information, we have open houses where people can come along and say, what do you think of transit? What would you want from transit? What time do you want it? Those sort of things. We do questionnaires. We work with the council and the local community to actually get feedback before we say. I mean, so the town of Cochrane, for the first month it was free. So it probably sort of worked too well because people were having to wait 5 days before they could get a ride, right? That was because everybody just went crazy and booked, because some people just wanted to drive around the town for 20 minutes and then go back home again, right? Because they wanted to try it out. So it was, that was the route that they used. Okotoks just went with like free for the first couple of weeks. I think Blackfolds may have done free for the first couple of weeks to get people to like it and choose it. And you know, we park the bus outside, we let people come in and see the buses and see where they go to and what the different options are. You may want to start is whether or not you include or you see how often that you have trips going to Penhold, etc., or some of those far-flung communities, because you have to, you know, you may be doing 7-8 trips per day, and if a bus has to go out towards Pine Lake, you're going to lose half of your trips a day because it's. I actually spend my summers at Pine Lake, so I pop into your co-op all the time and your McDonald's, etc. So I know how long it takes to get there. So you're down a bus for 90 minutes, and that's not going to be good for the people of Innisfail, because that's who the service is really for.
Well, and I guess that's the flexibility is what I like, the potential, because you could adjust the fare if that's what needed to happen. And when I mentioned the taxi thing, I think that we seem to be in that, just in that usage factor where the taxis are struggling to actually continue to give us service in all of the off times, and to make it profitable to them to actually keep a taxi here. That seems to be the cusp of where we're at. And anyway, no, I would like to see us look at this hard and potentially try it.
Yeah, so no other questions. So I'll just have a motion that we accept Southland Transportation report as information. Councillor Wing?
Mayor Barclay, I would make the motion that we accept the Southland Transportation presentation as information, and thank you for coming up.
Thank you very much.
Okay, all in favor? Great, thank you. And I'm sure that Director Jenkins and you will have many more chats. It'll feel like 5 years, right? Instead of just 1 year.
Excuse me. I have one question through to Director Jenkins. The stats that we had show October is a very busy month. When did our larger bus break down? I'm just curious.
It was mid-October, I think, late October when this Pace Bus 1 broke down, yeah. So it would have been operating a portion of that month.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we will move on to 3.3 with Director Vickers and the citizen recognition policy.
Perfect, thank you, Mayor Barclay. So I do have two policies attached here, a draft business recognition policy and a draft citizen recognition policy. So in 2016, Council passed the 2016-009 Citizen Milestone and Achievements Recognition Policy that sets the guidelines for when and how the town recognizes the significant milestones and achievements of its citizens. During the August 22nd, 2022 regular council meeting, Council passed the following motion with the intent to repeal the 2016-009 policy that Council directs administration to draft a policy regarding a business recognition program. There was portions in the current citizen policy that we've pulled out and put in its own standalone policy, so now they both need two new policies. So we can go over the citizen recognition policy first. Okay. So this policy does indicate that a certificate of recognition will be signed by the mayor and, if requested, presented to the citizens by a member of council. So the two items that were the same from the old policy were 85th birthdays and every 5 years after that, as well as individual or team champions of provincial, national, or international competitions. However, this did give us the opportunity to add a few items. So we did add individuals who have volunteered on town boards and committees, so they would also get a certificate of recognition as well. Number 4 is at the discretion of the town to recognize an individual's exceptional academic achievements. And then we did add this last one, at the discretion of the town to recognize an individual's exceptional service or achievements that positively contribute to the community. So these are items that this is just a certificate that they would receive upon a request. Number 2, so this does stay the same. So of the following citizen milestone gifts could include plaques, flower arrangements, and or a gift basket will be given in addition to a certificate of recognition, and if requested, presented to the citizens by a member of council. So this is for 100th birthdays and a 50th wedding anniversary and 10-year anniversaries after that. And then in order for a citizen to be recognized, the town must receive a recognition request identifying the citizen, address, and details of the milestone. The citizen recognition may be completed by the citizen themselves or any member of the public throughout the calendar year. That would include a council member as well. And recognition requests shall be submitted to the town a minimum of 2 weeks in advance of the milestone to enable proper planning and coordination. And then we did add that the town does have the authority to decline recognition requests at its sole discretion. So, was there any questions on that? Not too much change from the original policy, just a couple little add-ons.
It's a question I have, Director Vickers, on the, in part 1, so the team champions, individuals or team champions. I wonder about changing that to like a medal recipient. I just think if we had somebody from the community and they went to a national, international competition and came back with a silver medal or a bronze, I mean, that's good, right? Like you don't have to come home with gold. And I think just getting to that level is an incredible feat.
Okay.
So not sure what the rest of council thinks of that, but.
Yeah, Mayor Barclay, that would be appropriate. A silver medal or bronze medal at, say, the Olympics would be quite impressive
Well,
feat as well.
even, I know last year, like.
Or nationals, or-
Girls softball, they came back with a silver and out to, I think Victoria. I believe it was the Canadian Nationals, and so, pretty big deal.
Okay, so Mayor Barclay, if we just change that to medal recipients, we can have it both. We can have a champion or / medal recipient as well.
I would say medal recipients, because the champions will be, that it won't always be a medal competition. It may be
Right.
like a champion, the trophy, and there are no medals, right? It's
Yeah.
not always gold, silver, bronze, so.
So, excuse me, perhaps the terminology should be the champion or place, a significant placement that, yeah, it's a certificate, it's not like we're having a parade. So I'd be totally in favor of recognizing, but there may not be medals, so if you put medals in there, that may
Right.
not describe what you want either, so just get the terminology that.
I can
it's
I'll make
a
sure we have an
significant
appropriate
accomplishment.
terminology for that.
I'm also wondering too, in, like with number 4, and maybe this would fall into it anyway, but I'm thinking somebody who has an exceptional talent, in sports, we always recognize that, but what about something else like music or the arts, or, you have academics in here, but maybe that would fall into the number 4 or 5 category.
Or Mayor Barclay, would you prefer, so if academia is separate, would you want the arts to be also separate? That could be
yeah, I would.
exceptional in music or the movies or
Yeah.
something like that, right?
Yeah.
So I can add a very similar statement
Okay.
that would be exceptional in the arts or something like that.
Yeah.
So then there would be 6 there instead of 5. I
That's
can do
okay.
that.
And I guess the big thing, of course, with both these things would be like getting the information out to the community so they know it.
Yes, Mayor Barclay, we would likely go through a communication
Yeah.
blitz, I guess, kind of thing, where we'd put that information out, that this is now a policy, well, it was a policy before, but now it's a reinvigorated policy, and get it out there.
Yeah,
Because
no, it's
this
great.
still is directed by other people. They have to come in and request to us,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, no, it's great.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to move on to the business
yes.
side?
Okay, so this is to provide the process of recognizing businesses and organizations through the town of Innisfil for their contributions made throughout the community, providing jobs and volunteer opportunities, and increasing economic vitality. So the first standard is that the town will present certificates of recognition to new Innisfil businesses and organizations, including both storefront and home-based businesses, provided they meet the following criteria. So they must have a current business license, and they must be based in Innisfil. And so requests for the mayor or other members of council to attend the official opening of a business or organization will be accommodated if their schedules allow availability. So businesses and organizations will be recognized for their years in service beginning at 25 years and increments of 5 years after that. So they've already will have received their Welcome to Innisfil New Business Certificate that will get triggered when they apply for a new business license. And then they would then request these after they've been open for so long, they would get this. So at 25 years and every 5 years after that, recognition shall be in the form of a certificate of recognition along with public recognition on the Town of Innisfil social media platforms. A certificate of recognition will be signed by the mayor and presented to the business organization by a member of council at the place of business. Certificates of recognition may also be presented to a business organization at the discretion of the town to recognize exceptional service or achievements in their industry or positive contributions to the community. Okay, so a business or organization milestone anniversary gift may be presented for anniversaries longer than 50 years in 10-year increments. So this may include plaques, flower arrangements, and our gift baskets purchased at a reasonable price at the discretion of the CAO. And in order for them to be recognized, the town must receive a recognition request identifying the business, organization, address, owner, and years in service. The business recognition request may be completed by the business itself or any other member of the public throughout the calendar year. The recognition request shall be submitted to the town office a minimum of 2 weeks in advance of an anniversary, milestone, or special achievement to enable planning and coordination. And the business and organization must be in good standing with the town of Innisfail. So the responsibilities we did on this one, that the town will identify new businesses eligible for recognition during the business licensing process. And it's the responsibility of new organizations who are exempt from business license requirements to advertise the town of their eligibility to receive recognition under this policy. And then we did also add, the town has the authority to decline recognition requests at its sole discretion.
All right, thank you. Just some comments. I'm wondering if it's too long between 5 and 25. You know, I mean, being in business for even 10 to 15 is, you know, quite a milestone, I think. So I don't know if we can shorten that up a bit, Director Vickers, or maybe we go, I don't know, we start at 0 and maybe we go at 10 or maybe 15 and then 25.
Okay.
You know, whatever you think.
So number 3, you think should be changed to, say, 10 years or 15 years?
Maybe 15, like
Okay.
10? 10? Okay.
Okay.
Then go, what, 10 and 25?
Yeah, we can change that to 25 in number 5.
Yeah, well, you have 25, like in number 3.
Or sorry, we
Yeah.
changed the 50, change that down to 25 in number 5.
Yes.
So number 3 goes to 10.
Yeah.
They get, and then number 5, they get it at 25. And then, do you want it in 10-year increments or maybe put it down to 5-year increments?
I would make it, I would make it, like, once it gets to 50, I would make it 10-year increments.
Okay.
I don't think we want to have less increments before 50 than we do after 50.
No, remember, I was even thinking get rid of the 50 and just have that as 25.
Okay,
And then,
then do 10s, but then you're kind of off kilter.
right, that's why I meant maybe
Maybe
just
do a
do,
15 to a 40,
okay,
and then
15
do
to 40.
50,
Okay, I'll
and
do
then
that.
do
Okay.
10s, because we wouldn't have a bunch. But, you know, I can, you know, I think of businesses in town that are 100 years, like we have the Innisfail Golf Course next year, that's 100th anniversary.
Yeah.
We've had Ingham's, not sure how far away Howells might be, because
Yeah.
Malcolm's contracting, like, I don't know, but just throwing some of those names out there. And I'd also, I don't know if this represents a plaque, but I'm thinking when somebody gets to 100 years,
Yeah, a
or
plaque
even
could
50,
be,
right, that's huge, right? So how that gets defined, I don't know, but
I would assume a plaque would look similar to that,
okay.
like something nice glass that they would
Yeah.
be able to,
I guess I
put
think a
out-
plaque, and I think of the plaque with the engraved thing on it, which is nice, but this is even,
we can change the name of plaque
Oh, I
to
don't know
change
what you
to
call
some
it.
sort of direct decorative, sorry, what was that?
statue, a statue? Sorry, I like that.
Statue of the current mayor, right?
Yeah, the current mayor, 100 years, yeah. Yeah, in 100 years, yeah. Yeah, well, you can, I don't know, maybe look through a catalog or something. There was maybe a name for this kind of thing, but, I mean, at 100 years, like,
Yeah.
that's so significant. There's even organizations in town that are, you know, they're upwards of the 65, 70-year mark, and
Yeah.
I did a couple of, sent it to an organization last year, 2 of them last summer that were 100 years.
Yeah,
And I went with a certificate on a piece of paper because didn't really know, right? Like, we didn't
Yeah.
have a policy, and
right.
in hindsight, probably could have done something a little more special for them, but my fault for sure. Councillor Bates.
Yes, I just wanted clarification. So is the suggestion number 3 be 10, 25, and then every 5? Is that the,
Yeah, I believe that it's, at 10 years, they would get their first recognition, every 5 years after that. At 15 years.
so that's not what I just asked, and I hear the mayor, I see the mayor shaking.
What?
So is it 10, 25 and then 30, 35? Is that, maybe I'm asking the mayor.
Well, no, it's not my policy.
Well,
but,
I just want to
yeah,
know what I thought I heard.
I
but-
guess I was thinking like, we do the thing at 0, so they get some recognition because they open the business, then we go to a 10-year anniversary,
Yeah.
then a 25-year anniversary.
Yeah.
And then after that, we need to maybe go 40, 50, like there would be a 15-year gap between 25 and then go 40, 50, 60, 70 or
Okay.
something.
So I
So it's a little broader because we're going to have a lot more businesses.
So they'd have one at 10, just a single one at 10, a single one at 25, and then 10 years starting at 40, 50, 60. Okay,
I could cheer for that.
yeah, I think that's.
I don't know, whatever. But Councillor Wing.
Thanks, Mayor Barclay, and through to Director Vickers. Just a process question then, relative to recognition requests shall be submitted to the town office. So would we consider inserting that businesses recognized by the Chamber of Commerce with Business of the Year awards would automatically receive a certificate or something from the town? Or would you like to see the chamber request something every year? Because I believe that the town should be recognizing, in addition to the chamber, I believe that the town should recognize those businesses.
We can add some kind of provision for that. However, we would have to have a formal request from either the chamber or someone.
Okay.
Councillor Wing's question, I'd recommend the two different entities to recognize the businesses accordingly to their policy. So I think the
Okay.
chamber has their own, how they wish to recognize a business, and the town separate would recognize as according to this policy.
Right. So but in the category that says businesses that are recognized for exceptional services or achievements in their industry or positive contributions to the community, I would consider that to be the criteria that says if you have a chamber, if you get a Chamber Business of the Year award, that's recognition that should be included. But if the process is that the chamber should request, that's fine. We just need to make sure the chamber knows, that's all, right?
Right, because the chamber can choose to make a request as well. Any citizen can, right? Yeah.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Through Director Vickers, just following up on the recognition request. Do you have a form for that? Is there one on our website, or will you be developing one?
So there's not currently a form, Mayor Barclay, through to Councillor Harrison. So we don't have a form currently. We can develop a form, or emails would work fine too, right?
It's just that they're all standard.
Yeah. Yeah, we can create a form that would go with it. That would be
Okay,
very,
thank you
very
very
simple.
much. Yep.
Anybody else? Okay, thank you for all this. It's good. Excellent. I guess we have, do you want to,
So I do have two motions,
Yeah.
one for each policy.
so could I please have somebody make the first motion? Councillor Dunham?
Mayor Barclay, I'll make the first motion that council recommends administration bring back business recognition policy 2023-002 to the January 23rd, 2023 regular council meeting for approval.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, and I'll have somebody make the second motion, please. Councillor Messaros? Oh, sorry, I thought you did. Yeah.
Trying to. That council recommends administration bring back citizen recognition policy 2023-001 to the January 23rd, 2023 regular council meeting for approval.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move into 3.4 with Director Vickers, the investment policy.
Okay. So during the 2022 budget deliberations, strategic planning sessions, and discussions regarding the Innisfil Multiplex / Aquatic Center conversations, discussions arose on how the town of Innisfil could leverage investment options, access revenue, and establish a more prudent financial state. So based on those discussions, we have a draft investment policy that will lay out the general investment guidelines that will guarantee compliance and efficient investment management. So a few of the main objectives held within this investment policy are, so safety of principal, So investments shall be undertaken in a manner that seeks to ensure the preservation of capital and to mitigate credit risk and interest rate risk. Liquidity, so liquidity of the investment portfolio must allow the town to meet all reasonably anticipated operating and capital funding requirements. And return on investment, so the town's investment portfolio shall be designed with the objective of attaining market rate of return. So the Municipal Government Act, or MGA, does detail the types of investments that a municipality may consider. Investments are listed under Section 250, and I did just list those below. So we are limited as a municipality on what we are able to invest in. So we may only invest our money in securities issued or guaranteed by the following. So the Crown in right of Canada or an agent of the Crown, a Crown in the right of a province or territory or an agent of the province or territory. So securities of another municipality, school division, hospital district, health region under the Regional Health Authorities Act or Regional Service Commission in Alberta. Securities that are issued or guaranteed by a bank, treasury branch, credit union, or trust corporation. Units in pooled funds of all or any of its investments described in clauses A to C. And E, shares in a corporation incorporated or continued under the Canada Business Corporations Act, or incorporated, continued, or registered under the Business Corporations Act, if the investment is approved by the minister. So the policy also outlines the limits and restrictions to assist administration in the management of the policy. So we do have portfolio limits. So each institution type shall comprise no more than the identified percentage in the total portfolio at any one time. So if we're looking at buying just Canada bonds, we can have 100% of our portfolio, because obviously the Government of Canada is considered the safest, most secure portion. The same would be for any investment in any provinces of Canada. But when we move down into, say, municipalities or schools or health boards, only 40% of our total portfolio can be invested into something like that, 60% for credit unions, and 80% at financial institutions. So it does put a limit on the credit quality. So investments in the portfolio will adhere to the following credit quality restrictions. So at BBB plus or lower, that's obviously 0. So A minus to A plus, we can have a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 75%. And then we get the AA minus or higher, and we can have up to 100% of that. We did put some portfolio diversification and restraints on it just to ensure the safety of principal limits are put to all securities within the town's portfolio. So no more than 25% should be invested into a single security. Just if something were to happen and that one were to fail, it's not all in there. And no more 30% of our long-term investments may be invested into a single issuer, and no more than 25% of our short-term investments may be invested in a single issuer. So yeah, there will be some minor service level impacts to this. There'll be a little bit of time developing the program initially, should this policy be approved. A RFD will be put out, or an RFP will be put out to banks and other brokerage companies to develop the program for us or help us and assist it. And there'll be a little bit of work, but after that, it will be minimal to keep it up going back and forth to council. And any changes to that, we'll have to bring to council for any other things. So I'd like any questions or comments about the policy?
Yeah, no, it looks good. That was one of my questions was if you're going to be putting out an RFP to organizations, and I mean, there's certainly some that specialize in working with municipalities and
absolutely, Mayor Barclay, and even
outside
just
of banks.
even just to get the right rates, we would be putting out an RFP saying, you know, we want a combination of short and long, you know, government, province, that kind of thing. So
I have a little bit of a concern with the 25%
Sure.
threshold. You know, typically, I think you may see that in portfolio management more around 10%.
Okay.
You know, lowering all those thresholds a little bit, and
This is for the credit quality percentage you're talking about?
the amount, the diversification, yeah, the amount
Oh.
invested in individual securities, so not more than 25% of the portfolio, and I guess maybe that depends what the portfolio is, but I would, well, you would get the advice from the investment professional, but I would say that should be 10.
Absolutely, we can lower that to 10. Mayor Barclay, if it always comes back later.
Yeah.
And it gets recommended to be higher, we can always come back and make that amendment later.
You know, like I almost find the diversification piece, I don't know, if you have to, you know, even go there right now as opposed to going to the professionals first and then them coming back with recommendations, because they will have recommendations in those categories. And you know, we always think GICs are safe. Well, there's, you know, they're only guaranteed to a certain level as well. So you may see those invested in, you know, into different corporations, even within one financial institution, especially when you're talking about the kind of money that this may be encompassing. But so I don't know if you want to have that section in.
Okay, we can pull that right out for now.
You look, CEO Becker?
Yeah.
I think we take an advisement. I don't think we should just pull it. I think we take council's advisement and take it away for further evaluation to determine the impacts of the policy.
Yeah.
You can do that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't mean pull it, I meant more so like don't have it in concrete either. You know,
Okay.
so you have the flexibility there, so you can adjust it as per somebody's advice.
Sure.
And
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Councillor Bates?
Well, I was looking at that to mean that would be a limit. That isn't necessarily where you'd go. And yeah, I at this point, I would be looking for the advice of these institutions, because I'm sure we're not the only one that's ever approached them, and they probably have.
If I may, Mayor and Council, maintain this policy and draft with any minor adjustments being suggested. Have it part of our RFP process, having the institution provide that professional feedback as a component of the RFP submission back. That would come back to you for final review.
Yeah, that's where I was thinking. And just for curiosity too, then, as you approach them, would they be saying, in addition to what they're recommending, as an example, here's where some of the interest rates are on this specific day for comparison purposes between them? And
I'm not sure if the policy requires that level of detail. I think that is
No,
put into the
not the policy, but I'm wondering
contract.
if we just ask them as an example, as they're giving us information for the policy, so that we could snapshot and say, yeah, this is where it would have been.
Yeah, I think that the management of the policy has been assigned to administration. Council will see the results of the investments, likely through your quarterly financials. But the administration of the policy and those percentages, we can give you some feedback on it, but specifics to the investments, you may not see the finer details.
That's fine. I just thought that if they're actually coming back to us with the recommendations, they could say, example today would be,
Right, okay.
just so we would have a relative feeling, not that I'm trying to grab onto that, just get a relative feeling of what that advice is versus somebody else's advice, but just kind of a marker in time. That's all I was looking for. Thank you.
Councillor Wing?
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Through to Director Vickers, I guess, although CAO Becker made an interesting comment too. The policy currently says that investment activity would be reported to council on at least an annual basis. I wonder if it shouldn't actually specify that it will come at the same time as the quarterly financial reporting does annually. I would hate to see.
I can adjust that.
Yeah, I'd hate to see an unaware group get stuck in that once a year thing. And then, yeah, so I was going to ask about the procurement procedure. So the procurement procedure will be the decision-making, or the contract will come back to us, back to council.
Yeah, not thinking out loud to Director Vickers, Mayor and Council, but I think to the nature of this policy, if it's held in draft, so we have limits up to 75,000. But in the case of pulling it into as a draft policy, I think that empowers council to be making the decision on the RFP results And then at the same time, final consideration of the draft policy. Director Vickers, does that make any sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Councillor Heistad?
Yeah, no, I'm just listening. I think that, you know, where this is a draft, it's a good crack at it. Overall, I like the language that CAO Becker's been using about, you know, we'll do the RFP, they'll come back to us, we'll go through it. And then I do agree with Councillor Wing's comments on the quarterly piece. That makes sense. So it's a good debate. Thanks.
So, Director Vickers, does this go on to the Alberta Purchasing Exchange as well?
It will,
Okay.
Mayor Barclay, yes.
Okay.
I will likely reach out to all the local banks and just let them know
Okay.
that it's out there for them to bid on, I guess, or
Yep.
put their forth there. Yep.
Okay. Okay.
That'll be likely over the next couple weeks, hopefully maybe by the end of January, something
Yeah.
could be posted.
And do you know, or like, will you be making a decision on, with our reserves, do we kind of have a schedule knowing, okay, we know we need this in place for the next 2 years, where we know that we may not touch this for 10 years, and so that would help them create a portfolio and,
Yeah, we'll do a cash flow analysis
Yeah.
to see how much we're needing over the next 12 to 24 months, to see how much we can put in for either a short-term rotation or up to, you know, a 1 to 2 year longer-term investment. But we'll do a cash flow analysis
Yeah.
first before
Perfect.
we do that.
yeah, and if it's liquid, you know, it's.
Exactly,
can
yep.
get at it
A lot of these
anyways.
nowadays are more, you can, you know, you can cancel with 30 days notice. You may lose some of the interest, but you still are guaranteed your principal or.
Well, and if you're in the
things like
bond
that.
market, you can sell it anytime,
Exactly.
right? So, yeah. Councillor Bates?
So through to CAO Becker, do you see a tie then of that decision-making to the reserves policy that we're still going to be working on?
Mayor Barclay to Councillor Bates, I see this part of our full financial picture. The reserves and the investment is only one component of it. But certainly this policy, but also the reserves policy that's forthcoming are two important steps for which we have never had those policies up to this point.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. So I'll have somebody please make a motion as per Councillor Bates.
Sure, I'll make the motion that's the recommended motion. The council recommends administration bring back investment policy 2023-001 to the, another one, January 23rd, 2023, regular council meeting for approval.
Director Vickers, do you want it longer than January 23rd? That's,
Yes, likely it will have to be probably into February now.
yeah.
I'll
Do
amend
you want
that
to say a future date?
to a future date.
Okay.
And if you take the 3s out of it, it'd be easier to make in the future. No, a future date would be fine.
Okay, all right. Please have somebody, any further discussion on that? Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, Director Vickers. That's great to see that and moving forward on that. So we'll move now into 4.1, correspondence and information.
Mayor
So-
Barclay, I'd like to excuse myself. There's
Okay.
an item on the agenda there under the correspondence that there's a conflict of interest with myself.
Okay,
Thank you.
we'll see you shortly. Okay. Okay, so we'll maybe start with number 1. So Spring Caucus 2023, Councillor
I just
or
wondered-
CEO
So what,
Becker.
excuse me,
CEO Becker.
Sorry, Mayor Barclay, not to interject. I was just wondering if you want to go into that item of number 5 and then pull back.
Okay, sure. Okay,
Councillor
of
Harrison for the
course.
rest of the
Fair.
dialogue.
That's why you get the big bucks. Okay,
So-
so,
I can introduce Mayor
Yep.
Barclay and maybe ask the director, unless the director wants to, do you want to speak to it?
I can start, sure.
Okay, go.
So just as a part of our review and evaluation of transportation options, in meeting with one of the drivers at the Legion, it came to my attention that not only had the Friday evening and Saturday service that council approved the motion of back in November, the Sunday service was also discontinued. So we had just requested from the Legion that that information come to council officially for your knowledge and approval, that it wasn't just sort of an ad hoc decision made there. We've received more feedback on the PACE vans in the last 2 weeks than we have in the last 2 years. So, so yes, there certainly has been some people that are missing the weekend service, and there's certainly some anxiety about the future of the service in the next few months. But yeah.
So Director Jenkins, based on what we heard today, like if that's the route that council chose to go, when would we see that service switch over? Like, are we waiting till April?
That would be a conversation with whatever service. We have till sort of the first part of April to where the Legion has committed to providing the service. I think once the decision's made and we can start to put together the transition and communications plan, we'd probably try to do it as quickly as we could, but.
So the feedback that you've received, is that primarily respect to the weekend service and?
Weekend service and general availability. It seems
Okay.
that people are not being able to book as much as they have been in the past.
And is there anything that we can do to rectify that right now, or that's entirely up to the Legion and what they're able to do? Really
guess,
is what it
yeah.
comes down to. Yep. Okay. Okay. Councillor Bates.
We'll have to assume that with one of the vehicles being down, that the service has to be impacted, even if it isn't, then we should only have one.
It certainly has been, but I know they're short, or like the driver scheduling situation, I think, has been a challenge as well.
So do you need a motion?
Can I ask a
What-
question first?
oh,
No, it's fine.
Of course you can, yes.
May I ask a question? So my question, and of course, I mean, you get lots of input at the office, and I only see what I see on social media just from people's comments. But further to the discussion we had earlier in the meeting, do people, like, are we actually serving anyone who needs a ride, or are we just saying, if you're not in a wheelchair, we're not taking you to church on Sunday? Because it kind of sounds like there are people that saying, gee, you know, I can't get to church and I don't have a ride. And so if we were, like, would the numbers be higher if people knew that they could actually get a ride if they really wanted one?
I think they would be. I think there has been a bit of a informal, that it's, you know, those are the target market, you know, we can, but that the messaging has sort of been, you shouldn't rely on this service if you aren't, you know, in need of sort of that accessible transportation.
So Mayor Barclay, just for
Yes.
your question. Yeah, if council, my advice to you is if you support the Legion's request to drop Sundays and a motion is required, or you can put it back to administration to engage the Legion on how to best address some of the calls we're getting, that there's demonstrating some requirement for transportation services, or you can make a motion to decline that request.
I guess my concern is, Director Jenkins and the council, that, you know, we hear that, well, there's only one person that needs the service on Sunday. Like, is that accurate? Or is that what we're hearing because of what you just said?
And yeah, I think that's Jonathan's comments about failed bookings. You know, that's some of that information is as important as the actual ridership numbers that we get, because that's the statistics that I have is the driver's log essentially. So those are only the trips that he actually, or that they actually completed. There's no record of whether someone called and they were not accommodated.
Yeah, okay. So would your advice be to just do what the Legion wants at this point in time, just because of capacity? And
I think there's probably going to be a lot of changes in the next 3 months.
Okay.
Anyway, you know.
yeah, okay. Okay. So we'll
So is it reasonable then to just ask that we send some kind of a notification to the churches to say, this is what's happening? The taxi company will accommodate whatever, but stay tuned, because this isn't the end of the road for our service to the community? please.
And we can also ask them if they have feedback. Do they have half a dozen people that,
Volunteer drivers, absolutely.
yeah, or that would really benefit from having the service available, so.
Yeah, and I believe the taxi is also accessible, is it not?
Oh, accessible as in, yeah. I don't know, wheelchair accessible?
I think it is. I think the one van is. Councillor Bates?
So the only other comment I was going to make is, as we, I think, it's a personal thought, as we proceed with Southland or this or all the way through, I think the reality is, as economic times are tough and we see the food bank going up, the usage of this will all screw up. There's going to be somebody or a bunch of people that don't have their vehicle anymore. And then the reality of Economics 201 is that falls back on the taxpayer if we're subsidizing this to whatever degree. It's a reality that we all have to realize and watch for and think about. I do believe the demand for the service now will be considerably more than it was during COVID, and for the economic reasons. That's just what I think.
Okay, so we'll have somebody then make a motion, please, that we accept the letter from the Legion and that we follow their service guidelines.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Heistad. All in favor? Okay, maybe we'll get Councillor Harrison to come back in and
You're out of the penalty box.
What's that?
I said you're out of the penalty box.
Oh, thank you.
so maybe, Kara, we can go back to the top of that list again and thanks. Yeah, so number one there, we have the 2023 Spring Municipal Leaders Caucus on March 29th to 31. Maybe, Kara, could you find out what time the 29th starts? Like, is it going to be a 9 o'clock start or is it a 1 o'clock start? And then, but does it start at 9 a.m.? Assuming it does, but I'm just thinking if people want to go, like, do we need to book that night or can we go up first thing in the morning? So. So we should have a discussion about whether, like, who wants to go, or you can give it some thought and maybe know next week. CEO Becker, was this part of our budget? Like within the, outside of the extra $2,000, was Spring Leadership Caucus part of the, we're going to go anyways?
In Mayor Barclay, last number of years, Leadership Caucus has been made available to all council. Sometimes the majority of council has gone, and sometimes only a couple members have gone. So I wouldn't call it mandatory. It's up to your discretion if you have a keen interest as a council or a council member. I encourage you to attend these types of events. It's the networking, but a direct understanding of what's going on with some of the government and AM policies.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important that people go if they can. So do you want to just let Kara know if you'd like to go? Is that okay with you, Kara? Yeah, okay. We can go from there. And maybe let her know in the next few days so we can get rooms booked because they do sell out very quickly. Okay, we'll move on to next. It's the same thing. And the stair climb challenge. Can let Kara know if you'd like to participate. Kara, do you want to, can you find out to make sure, like, do they allow non-firefighters in the tower too? Or is it only for firefighters in the tower?
So non-firefighters, so council and administration, will have to do the chief, like the race the chief again,
Okay,
which will be in that tower.
okay. Okay. So we can maybe chat about this going forward and decide who wants to participate. And I know we're kind of chatting the other day that, you know, we should try to do some intentional fundraising this year if we're going to do this. If we're going to die, we may as well die on a high note. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I could let you know who won't be participating.
Okay, that's one. Okay, all right. Okay, and Kara, can we register it as team? Like last year, we seemed to register all as individuals, so we were doing individual fundraising, or can we be like team?
So
in
from
a
my
split?
understanding, when you're challenging the chief, it has to be on an individual basis.
Okay.
But they were aware,
Yep.
and they were putting it
Yep.
as a group for
Okay.
Innisfail Council and administration. So the firefighters, we can do it as a team. Council and whatnot has to do it as an individual, but they do put it as a total for all
Yeah,
of us.
Okay, well, maybe what we can do, everybody can decide who wants to, they can email Kara, and then we can get together as a group, whoever wants to, and we can do some brainstorming around doing some fundraising. What's 57 stories? Next. Letter. Yeah, I think I set that out to people last week. That was actually today. Did anybody listen? Councillor Bates, I was counting on you.
Yeah, Mr. EV.
What do you want to know?
No, I don't know. No, I just, just thought you might. Okay, next. Okay, so maybe I'll just have, if there's no questions about anything, just have somebody make a motion that we accept the correspondence as information. Councillor Wing? Oh, you had your light.
Oh, thanks, Mayor Barclay. Yes, I would make the motion that we accept correspondence and information.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried. And we'll do roundtable. Today we're starting with Councillor Harrison.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Barclay. Again, a very quiet week. An upcoming event this week for myself is the AGM and the monthly RD Mug meeting. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Dunham.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Last Wednesday, I attended the town and Red Deer County engagement, and it was great to sit down and discuss with some of the county council about our shared interests and how we can work together going forward. As well, on Friday, I attended the planning and development training, which was fantastic, and learned a lot. That was it for me.
Thank you. And Councillor Messaros.
Must be cold or something. Thank you, Mayor Barclay. Yeah, on Wednesday, I also attended the meeting with Red Deer County, and I found it very informative. And Friday, I attended the planning and development with Kelsey Becker-Brooks, and I just wanted to point out that being at that session gave me a huge appreciation of all the planning and all the talent that we have on our staff. So it was great from many points of view. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Heistad.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did the county meeting, development training, as well as this week I have Age Friendly at 1 p.m. on Wednesday. I was at the Eagles game on Friday, which was a really good crowd. It was a good night. And then actually I wanted to bring to your attention, I've done some professional development. February 7th to 9th, I'm online with the Green Municipal Fund that FCM offers. So it's a 3-day thing, but I got some funding for that, so should be good. It's all online. So thanks.
Okay, Councillor Bates.
Likewise, I attended the county engagement and the planning and development. I think that's the first time that I've seen that type of information presented to council admin and the SDAB all together, and I think that is very, very good and useful for them all to realize that everybody's getting the same thing. And I think back over first term, I think there's been an evolution, because I think when Kelsey talked about don't look at the what ifs and don't do Google searches, and I think a lot of that used to come into play, and so I think it was good that she covered that. All the time I spend at the arena, and I always learn something new, other than my OCD with some of the signs. I found out this past weekend that apparently if we try to run the PA systems on both sides at the same time, it's a real problem. And I provided some details to the CAO, and I don't know if I need to. I'd make a motion that we ask admin to get back to us and just tell us if that's in fact true. And maybe down the road, whether or not we need to do something about it. If it's just enough to bring it to attention, I'm good with that. I don't need a motion. This week, have the Mountain View Water Commission and tour of the Revive Cannabis.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wing.
Thank you, Mayor Barclay. The Innisfil Library Board met last week regarding to plan for the 5-year plan of service. That will begin production in the coming months. It's quite a process. It's very well documented, and it's a very informed process, so I'm quite looking forward to that. We also discussed Family Literacy Day that's coming up on Saturday, January the 28th. As in past years, council is being invited to participate with the barbecue from 11:30 to 1:30. Event partners include the Henday Association for Lifelong Learning, Innisfil Family Day Home Society, Innisfil Historical Village, and the Innisfil and Area Family Resource Network. So please advise if you're able to assist Saturday, January the 28th from 11:30 to 1:30. The Chamber January board meeting was last Wednesday, so planning for the trade show this spring has begun, and there will be an upcoming consultation with members relative to their expectations and services coming from the Chamber. So we're going to step into the middle of the strat plan and get busy and do some a different kind of work. So that's interesting. I very much enjoyed our meeting with Red Deer County Council, and actually I think it was really interesting that we did it the same week as we had our session with Kelsey Becker-Brooks with relative to planning and development. Our municipal councils and rural councils are pretty different beasts when it comes to that, so I found that to be very interesting and hope that we can have more regular meetings with the county council for sure. And then coming up this week, I am participating in an online meeting relative to the local food movement, along with Leona Staples from Innisfil Growers, and I will be attending the business visit to Revive Cannabis.
Okay, thank you. And is it all right if, Kara, do you want to send an invite out for the 28th,
11:30 to 1:30.
11:30 to 1:30 barbecue
Thanks.
at the library, and then it's just easier that way. Okay, so last week I had the first meeting of the Climate Leadership Caucus. It's a collaborative effort between MCCAC and the Community Energy Association. The Community Energy Association is focused on providing local government and builders training and education on energy efficiency and climate-focused solutions that is founded in research. Projects that the CEA has worked include the Peaks to Prairies EV charging network, eVenture in Northwest Alberta, which is Edson, Hinton, Drayton Valley, Edmonton, Grand Prairie, and Whitecourt. EV network, and in addition, there's other projects that are underway in Southwest Ontario, Whistler, Vancouver Island, and so on. The work the caucus will undertake is helping shape Phase 1, which is developing a playbook for municipalities along with a planner tool, and we'll also be developing a terms of reference. The work is based on the BC Municipal Climate Leadership Caucus, and the focus for this is on transportation, buildings, and waste. There was representation from across the province. In our breakout rooms, we discussed the opportunities in front of us as well as the barriers and challenges. The need for adaptation due to hotter, drier summers, severe weather, nature-based solutions, transportation networks, waste solutions, wastewater reuse, building code changes, and the framing of the communication around these topics were probably the main points that came up in the breakout rooms. The group was really inspiring. It was from all across Alberta, and I thought it was really interesting, you know, some of the conversation that came out as, you know, communities see the need for this adaptation that needs to take place, and yet, depending on where you're located in the province, that conversation can be very difficult to get started. So I know there's going to be a lot of help around framing that conversation for a lot of communities. Also attended the town and Red Deer County engagement last week, and then the planning and development workshop, and going to say ditto to what Councillor Messaros said. I think we're so fortunate to have such a great planning and development team here with Director Jenkins and Manager Shaw and Tracy as well. So that's great to be able to have the confidence in the people here doing a great job. So other than that, we'll be going to Revive this week and a few other things on the schedule. So that's that. So Councillor Heistad.
I forgot to add tumbleweed event at Historical Village this weekend
Right.
at 11 a.m.
Right,
So
Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to upcoming events. Just have somebody make a motion, please, to accept these as information. Councillor
Barclay, I'll
Dunham.
make that motion.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? All right, thank you. And then we will have a motion to go in camera, please.
I move that we go in camera.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Messaros. All in favor? Great, thanks. Just take a 2-minute break here.